Okay, I think that we've got audio now. Can you guys hear me? How's it sound, Scott? Can you guys hear me now? I think you can. Let's give this a shot. I'm trying a new microphone. Trying a new microphone here, and getting the settings right is not the easiest thing to do. I think that I have it set, and then for some reason it automatically goes back to the factory settings. That's all right. I'll learn to check it every time before I go live. Again, I'll start off again by saying, welcome to the Upstairs to the Right music channel. I am the now unmuted Mike McWilliams. This is the Wednesday Night Hump. Here on this channel, we talk a lot about guitars, about guitar related stuff, music, and I think you'll enjoy it. So if you stick around for that kind of stuff, you will not be disappointed. It's time well spent. I always say that I'm so appreciative of you spending your time with me. Time is a valuable thing, and spending a little bit of yours with me is really greatly appreciated. I hope it is, again, time well spent. I think it is. If you like this kind of stuff, stick around. Hello, everybody. Ben, Scott, we got Mr. Watts in the house. How you guys doing? Good to see you this evening. Well, before I get started, I will, by the main topic tonight, I will discuss what's been going on here. And I got a email that told me that my package would be delivered today. As you guys know, every month I get a delivery of guitars from Japan, vintage guitars. And because of the holiday that was occurred here this last weekend's Koningsdag, I knew that I was screwed in terms of getting it in any kind of serviceable, quick manner. Excuse me, my tongue is thick tonight. Any kind of serviceable manner, and I was right, unfortunately. So they said it was supposed to come by today. But unfortunately, around 4 o'clock or so, they said, "Nope, sorry, guy, we're not going to make it." And so it just didn't work out for me. I really was like super excited because I thought that I would be able to take the opportunity to do a unboxing video to show you guys those guitars, particularly the Ario Pro 2. I like to show you guys. I like to look at it myself. But that didn't work out today. It's disappointing, but a little bit of a setback. But I have a general philosophy, that the universe tends to unfold as it should. If you're familiar with that line. So that's kind of where I'm going with this one. So it's all right, but it was one of the main things that was going to take up most of the time in tonight's conversation tonight. So I don't have, a full hour's worth of things to discuss here. As a result, that I don't have my little show and tell schedule. So, with that said, I will say that it is entirely possible that it'll be here tomorrow. I really hope so. And the unboxing video we'll just have to do, and we'll talk more about them on Sunday night. But in touching back to last live stream that I did, I was touching upon Aria Pro 2 guitars. And I was talking about some of the myths that, are prevalent out there in the market about them, and also a little bit of their history, about ones that I thought that were worth looking at. Um, and I lightly touched upon the subject of myths out there about, in that case, specifically the Aria Pro 2 and its history. Uh, but in the past, I've also talked about myths out there in general in the guitar industry. So, Ben Mark, how you doing? There's a culture around guitar myths. I've talked about that before. So we're going to talk about this tonight. We're going to go about as far as we can. I have to admit, I got up super early this morning, so I'm running on fumes. So maybe it's a blessing in disguise that it's not going to be as long of a show tonight, but we do have an important topic to talk about because it's something that actually kind of, you know, slightly pissed me off this week. So I had alluded that I went to one of the guitar forums that I sometimes go to see if anybody had purchased or bought or knew anything about that particular Aria Telecaster. And I stated that, from my research that I can back up, and from my own history with them, personal history in Japan, uh, that especially that particular model, that it was indeed a mid 90s guitar that uh, the, the prevailing thought out there is that after 1987, as you know, our Pro 2, it said, uh, stopped making guitars inside of Japan, that they all moved over to Korea to the Semic factory, and that is just not true. Um, and one guy got in there and he said, "Well, as far as I know," and I said, "Well, that's what people think." And I tried to explain to this guy, but he just kept pushing my buttons. Well, you're not proving anything. You're not posting anything. So I said, fine. You know what? I've told you. I've showed you pictures. I sent you the link to the video showing me playing the guitar over a decade ago. And all of this stuff, and yet somehow or another, because I have proven a prevailing myth out there incorrect, I got backlash. And I wasn't seeking backlash, I was seeking information. And so I gave him, I said, all right, fine, prove me wrong to the same, diligence that, I provided this information. And I unloaded. I gave all the links. I took the time to go back and look through my history and look at all the stuff that I had done research, just that particular guitar. And it got me thinking that these myths just aren't stories. They shape what we buy. Well, they shape how we judge an instrument. And if you're running on incorrect information, and you would think in this day and age of the so called smartphone, which has more computing power than the old IBM machines that used to be running on the East Coast back in the 60s. It took up rooms. You have all that in the palm of your hand and more, 10 times that actually, and computing power, and yet and still people will not take the time to do their research, and it's just amazing to me. It's just amazing to me. And one of the things that we're really about on this channel is trying to do our homework, you know. And when we're wrong, if something proves to be incorrect down the lane, then okay, great. It's something that we're willing to be fungible on our knowledge of somewhat, but sure of some things for sure, especially if we've done our homework. And you fast forward to today where when I was growing up, there was no internet. You heard about it, pawn shop chatter, backstage whispers, that one guy at the music store, who swore he knew everything. And that's kind of how I, learned or heard about things. And again, fast forwarding to today, you've got YouTube, you've got Reddit, you've got all this stuff, and yet somehow the myths have spread louder and faster than ever before. And in some cases, I find them to be damaging, and I'll explain why. Now, tonight, again, I want to talk about. And by the way, after I left my reply on the forum to him saying, okay, for some reason that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the guitar. You want to talk about the history of guitars, fine. I posted all my links, all of my information, said, here's what you asked for, concede that you were incorrect, and then just reassess your other assumptions is all I ask. And that's all I ask generally here with this channel. If you come in and you have some suppositions that have been proven to be incorrect, then be open, of course, to find out what the truth is. And, you know, again, I just find it amazing that in this day and age that these myths actually still stick around. And again, just kind of got me started with tonight's subject. Run Riot, how you doing, sir? Welcome. Greetings to you. Welcome to everybody showing up here. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to comment, guys. I'm so glad to see everybody here. You know, there are, I'm sorry, I didn't finish that thought. So I posted what I said. I said, hey, all I ask for you is just keep an open mind. And I left the forum. I stopped posting, which is disappointing to me because when the guitar came in, I planned on uploading some of the videos, pictures of it once I unboxed it. Certainly sharing, opening up the neck pocket and confirm, here we go, and figuring out exactly what, uh, you know, the true, that last little bit of information that I need in order to confirm what I know to be true. That's a Japanese made aria in the 90s. And I will not do that now. I just walked away from it because you go to these forums and you have these guys who are so sure they know what they're talking about. And they're the loudest ones in the room, and then when you show them, or try to, in a calm, very logical, well laid out manner, what your arguments are, then of course they'll find some other, avenue in order to try to avoid conceding that they were wrong. And that kind of environment is what destroyed the forums. It's one of the reasons why they're not popular anymore. And so, I just walked away. I said, okay, here's what I've said. Yeah, I believe it. Here's my backing it up. Do with it as you wish. You some of those points were that, yes, Aria Pro 2s were made, not just in Korea, but also in Japan at the same time after the Matsumoku, which was where they were originally made, factory shut down. And for some reason, and it seems to be the prevailing kind of theme throughout a lot of these myths, is, you know, this black and white kind of thinking, either or. If Matsumoku shut down, then for some reason, with all these other OEM makers literally down the street from the one that they were dealing with, they said, "Nah, fellas, we're good. I'll tell you what, we're going to ship the whole operation over to Korea." It doesn't from a business standpoint. Why would you ship, all your production over to Korea when you've got OEM makers, literally down the street who will do the work for you? And that's exactly what they did. They split it between the two. They were doing work with Korea in the 1970s. Simic's own history notes that they were doing business with Aria in the 1970s. So, why this myth persists is, um, with no obvious being created labels on some of the models that were made in Korea, and also no made in Japan really on the Japanese made stuff, branding stayed consistent. It didn't matter where it was made, they kept the same branding. Do you understand what I mean? In other words, Whether the guitar was made in Japan or whether it was made in Korea, there was a consistency with the branding there. Um, Even though production locations changed. And with no obvious labels on some models, assumptions formed and stuck, especially among collectors who only value Matsumoto era builds. You look like Marvin sometimes Gaye. I'll tell you a Marvin Gaye story. No, you don't have to block him. That was all right, Scott. I'll tell you, anytime somebody makes me laugh, they can stick around. So if you want to come back, Matt, you can come back. Hey, Adam, how you doing? I was a teenage professional actor. One of the things that I did, believe it or not. Actually, I was supposed to be on a TV show called 227, but we'll get into that story another time. But I was working with a group of actors, and the guy who was doing my makeup was Marvin Gaye's old makeup guy. And Marvin Gaye, this was in the mid 80s, Marvin Gaye had died about 2 or 3 years before, had been shot by his father. And he told me a story about this woman who came backstage and was just all, I didn't believe it because this makeup guy was as flaming as they come. But he said the chick came back there and was hitting on him, but somehow Marvin Gaye took the girl. He said he was looking for Marvin, and he looked behind the stage curtain, and let's just say that she was on her knees. and that was and that was a first-hand story on Marvin Gaye. So anyway, I got a lot of those stories. So why does this matter? It matters because this myth unfairly devalues the quality Korean-made arias and keeps new players from discovering excellent guitars at fair prices. Again, it just, they're almost like these guys who, perpetrate these myths and just, assume that, and don't do their homework either. Oh, if you're going to speak up, nobody knows you're a fool until you open your mouth. You know, it's a basic rule of thumb. And I just think they're agents of destruction in this matter because you keep young people hear these things and they might be missing out on some great guitars that they can have for half the price of a Squire Custom 5, or even hell of the Fender, whatever it is, standard, and be happy. So there's that. God Eater, greetings from Nigeria. Okay. My daughter loves your channel. Thank you so much. So good to see you. Could you say, hey, Anita? No, I'm not going to say I need a hand job. I just told you another kind of job story. That was a good one. Welcome, God Eater. You made me laugh. You can stick around. Almost. You almost got me. Can I ask you something? Bing Tang says, does using a free DAW affect the sound of the guitar? No. There is a lot of free patches out there, quite frankly, that I used on some albums that I did. Um, Now, this was in the late, before the 2015, 16, 17 period, but yeah, that sound great. So no, not at all. Paying for DAW, it really depends. You can pay for some crappy program, ones, and you can get some, really well programmed ones for free. So there's that. Musical companion, welcome. Right now, first wave Ibanez from the mid late 70s, along with other J brands, are sleeper instruments and quality vintages. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm hitting on here. And yet, if you go to the forums and you see these guys who say, "Oh well, those Korean arias are no good," well, that's not true at all. And second of all, that's assuming that, there aren't Japanese ones also after 1986, 87. So again, like I said, it matters because this myth unfairly devalues quality Korean made and Japanese made Arias and keeps new players from discovering excellent guitars at fair prices. You know. It's gatekeeping and purity test. That's the way I see it. It's gatekeeping. The men, you know, and a reasonable objection in that situation would have been would have been, you know, oh, that's interesting. I always heard this. You know, I'll have to look into what you're saying. See, then I would say, okay, that guy right there is sincere. But to start the attacks and just speaking like you're so sure. And then when you've been proven wrong, to just, okay, I was proven wrong, but I can't concede. A man who can't admit he's wrong is no man at all. And form behavior is the worst. It's the reason why forms are dying. That's not a real vintage if it doesn't have the original case. Or post 85 Tokais, nah, never mind, they're no good. Skip it. Or unless it's got a JV or an E serial number, it's not collectible. Well, one of these guitars I hope to show up one of these days is a C serial, which I defy you guys to go out there, look on the forums, and try to find somebody when they're talking about show your serial numbers that can find many, if at all, a C stamped, because this is early 1985, and this is during the period when these were the only fenders being made in the world. So again, that's not true. What about the numbers, the stuff that happened in between the JV and the E series? Made in the same factory, made with, actually, the closer you get to 84, made with the JV parts. So, does it make it less collectible? What's really going on? You know, what's really going on? Let me catch up with the chats here. There was a lot going on then. Yeah, I guess God either said something really bad because he got deleted by Maddie. Welcome, Maddie. How you doing, man? Thank you. I appreciate that. Then what percentage between the amp guitar and effects affect a good tone of sound? Well, quite frankly speaking, in the setup that you're talking about, so you're talking about going from your guitar into something that you can plug into an audio interface. Then that audio interface is going to go into your computer through the processor into your DAW, and then whatever effects you have in the chain there. The only thing that's going to be a big effect there is the quality of your interface and how good the quality of your pickups. Actually at that point, those are the only two factors. If are you using a short cable, or are you using wireless in order to make those connections? Those will affect things as well. So, Rapid Fire got scratched by Scott. Thank you, Scott. See Through It All got scratched. Daddy's packing heavy. Daddy has big hands. I don't know who Daddy is. And, well, Butters, you definitely you're out. Bro, thank you so much for the information. I feel light. Haha, you're so cool. No, man, it's no problem. I appreciate you asking. It's just it really invest if you're plugging through that and you're recording through that kind of system, then invest in the best mic preamp you can. I have a tube mic preamp here that's not very expensive. It's actually very cheap, and quite frankly, that'll make a big difference in your tone as well. I would suggest, really, before you go into your interface, you should be going into a tube preamp. And that will solve 99.9% of your sound issues. You are Daddy Silly. Well, now I can tell you for a fact I ain't nobody's daddy. And all that big hand talk, wrong channel. Run riot for zapping the trolls. Yeah, thank you guys. We got the 1-2 team of Maddie Two Hats and Scott on the job tonight. Thank you so much, fellas. I appreciate it. But some of that stuff is funny though. That was pretty funny. If you're worried about resistance and signal loss, use EMGs. Yeah, you go for noiseless pickups. Absolutely. Musical companion. Absolutely. Damage. This isn't about helping buyers, it's about gatekeeping. It's about tribalism, where only those who are in the know are allowed to participate. It rewards early adopters and insiders while pushing any newcomers who might otherwise contribute to the community and discover new instruments and give brand new information or shed new light from experience. You know, I'm telling these guys, look, I here's the video of me over a decade ago playing this same guitar on stage, and this is what the luthier who ran the shop that I was borrowing it from told me. And when I held it in my hands and everything, there was no doubt nobody in the, there was no doubt it was a Japanese guitar. And yet somehow that's not good enough. So this tribalism, man. Hello, greetings from Germany. Hey, Andy, how you doing? Welcome, welcome. Are you I Show Speed Uncle? No, Vignesh. I don't even know what that is. I bet you if I say that backwards, it does. Never mind. It discourages exploration. It keeps people boxed into the narrow defines of value. You know, great gear goes unloved, and the market becomes inflated around a small number of the approved models. Well, the JVs are the one you really want because I own 20 of them, and I'm never going to give them up. But for just the right price, you can get one for me. A gatekeeper. Spreading information on the internet in order to protect their investments or to drive up their investments or to make their investments more than they really are, while hoping that the masses of people don't do their homework. But not the people here at Upstairs to the Right Music Channel. Welcome, everybody. Don't forget to hit the like button if you like what you're hearing tonight. And also, if you want to join in and you're new here, you can do so. I would love to have you join this great crew of wonderful people. Every live stream, they're always here to support me, and I do appreciate it. I appreciate you watching as well, guys. So, yeah, it's just the truth is, you know, I deal in made in Japan vintage guitars. I've had now dozens and dozens of them pass through my hands in the last 30 plus years. And I have more than just a guess, I have an informed opinion. And the made in Japan world is full of overlooked gems. I know this because I've seen them, and some of you guys as well. Often because someone online declared them wrong for not fitting an idealist production line. In other words, you know, there are made in Japan after 1987 Aria Pro 2s out there that people either don't know about or aren't interested in because it wasn't made in 97. But, that doesn't make any sense. So the ice cream shop closed in 87, but the ice cream shop right next door, owned by their cousin, who had the same recipes, picked it up, but somehow that ice cream is no good anymore. It doesn't, and again, using the ice cream analogy again, looking at that so-called 87 cutoff date for made in Japan Arias, you closed down the ice cream shop, you had a cousin next door who had the same recipes for the same ice cream, and yet you said, no, that's okay, cousin, I'm going to move my entire business over to Korea. It doesn't make sense. Even if so, you even look at it from a logical standpoint, which I don't, again, a little common sense. Everybody wants a black and white kind of thing, and it does not work that way in the vintage world. It does not, especially in the made in Japan vintage world. It doesn't work that way because, again, like I said, you had cousin Soji, you had cousin, you had all your cousins lined up, and they were all doing the same thing in the same neighborhood. And sometimes you traded things. Sometimes you would call up cousin Soji and say, hey, I'm out of necks. Do you have any necks that I can borrow? And so you had guitars that again were being made in a lot of different factories, at the same time even too. Part of it was made here and it was finished at another place. It wasn't a clean system. And for you to put that kind of thought into it, to make it black and white for whatever, I guess to make it more comfortable for you, is a falsehood that it's a hill I wouldn't die on. I wouldn't do that. Let's catch up here. Benny in the house. How you doing? Andy, it's just a report about Trump, frightening. Benny, hey, Scott saying hello. Hi, bro. Mr. Kumar is saying, what can we expect on this live video? Well, we're talking about Guitar Sir as always. John, I didn't catch what you caught there at the bottom. I hate history. Short and sweet. What can we expect? Short and sweet, man, is a guy rambling on about guitars for about an hour. Short and sweet. Maybe not so sweet. Um, you know, the takeaway is if the myth doesn't help people learn or enjoy playing, it's gatekeeping. And let's try to leave that on the door at the doorstop. I walked away, and I won't go back either. I won't post anymore to that thread, even though it's my thread. But it got hijacked when I said the sacrilegious thing because it's protecting somebody's interest. I bet you that guy who spoke up has an interest in Matsumoku made Aria Pro 2s. And if you say anything else, then, that contradicts the narrative that they're trying to put forth. And even if he didn't, it's even dumber. I would somewhat respect you if you're doing it for that reason, because at least I could understand it. But just to defend that position without knowing it, it's laziness. We do our homework in everything. And the reason we do our homework and study these things is so that we can, make an informed decision when it comes time for us to purchase our stuff. I'm good is not just I'm good with what I have, it's I'm good with what I have. Dig that. People want certainty is the reason why I think the psychology behind why I think people perpetrate these myths, throughout the forums. People want certainty. They want it black and white. Serial equals year. Model equals factory. But the guitar world in Japan, I was in the 90s, was fluid. Brands like Greco, Tokai, Fender Japan, Aria, they all subbed out builds. They reused parts and they adjusted specs mid-run. There was, that's why between the JV and the E series, you have the A, B, and C, and then you have D, and then the E. And for some reason, everything between the JV and the E series is kind of, discounted. But in between these, they were changing specs even that quickly within a 1 year period of 1985. The truth, it's harder to memorize, but much more rewarding to understand if you know the truth. Or at the very least, a little bit of the truth can be contagious. So that's why I try to give you guys, a little bit of it so that you may read something on a forum someday or come across a discussion with somebody and you'll remember that I said these things and you'll say, hey, that's not true. So I think we start getting rid of those myths within our own community as well. Some people just love spreading things they heard somewhere once and never made sure to verify themselves. That's right, Run Riot. Again, it's intellectually lazy. to do something like this, intellectually lazy to do something like that, and then to defend it with such vigor, you know, is what amazes me. I think it made me mad. It's just, again, like I said, it's the reason why I walked away from that thread, because I don't I'm trying to give you guys something. Now there are people who support me, and I haven't read what the reply was. Um, it's not because there's no way you can come back from what I said and what I wrote and showed, uh, but I just don't want to get into it, because it soured me, and that's a shame. And that's one of the reasons why I believe that guitar forms are dying. Ah, the forms are so whack, Maddie says. It's really a junk out there. Yeah. Mike, can you talk about musicians and hearing loss? Yes, Scott. Most people don't realize how bad it is, and some, I guess, embarrassed to seek out help. No, actually, that is a great subject to talk about. I think that's a great idea. Let me sit down and do some research and talk about that. We will cover that. I will do that. Absolutely. Well, I need my, it's, with me, just as a precursor to that subject, I will say I've talked about before how I zealously, sorry, zealously guarded my hearing when I worked in the studios. So we'll talk about that. But again, it's because I came from a background, my dad being an airline pilot, and him, teaching me about protecting your ears. We'll talk about that. Master, hello from Russia. Happy May Day to you. Happy May Day to you, bro. Hello from Russia. This is a very cool holiday for us. Yeah, I know. Happy May Day to you. I hope you don't drink too much. Enjoy yourself. Don't enjoy yourself too much. Run riot. People in general pretty constantly hate being wrong. Well, how do you learn if you can't say, hey, you know what, maybe I was wrong about that? If you, and the guy said, well, I come here to learn, and if you can convince me, I'm open to it. But no, no, that's how I knew he was the complete opposite. It's like those American government programs, No Child Left Behind really means every child left behind. The Patriot Act really means that the Unpatriot Act. And I'm here to learn. I'm not here to learn. It's the same thing. So I just, like I said, I walked away. But it's because in previous posts prior to that, I had said, no, you're wrong about that. No, you're wrong about that. And I guess somebody like that just can't be helped being told wrong that they're wrong. You're right. Just not a lot of open-minded people in general, I think. I guess. Yeah, we're definitely feeling the effects of No Child Left Behind. Yeah, yeah. The the Affordable Health Care Act, which was anything other. I could go on. I'm trying to show you. I'm trying to tell you guys something on the side. This is a digression. I'm trying to make a point to you about something there. By the way, guess you hadn't caught on to that. Some people love to agitate. They get enjoyment out of messing with the rest of us. Yeah, Scott. That's why I'm not going back, because I came to the conclusion that I gave this man. It reminds me of a story I heard. This dude wanted to go out on a hike, and on the trail he comes across a paleontologist and a Greek historian. And they're just talking, shooting the breeze as they're walking up this trail, and they come to this clearing, and they see, in the distance, not too far, Bigfoot getting a hand job from Wonder Woman, right? And the paleontologist thinks, well, we have found some unusual bones that, would say that it is possible that there is a missing link there and a Bigfoot does exist. And the Greek historian says, well, Diana Prince and and all the mythology behind her really does come from Greek mythology, so maybe there is something to that. And the guy who joined them on the hike says, "Well, I read on a forum one day somewhere where it said that Bigfoot and Wonder Woman don't exist, so so I don't see this." And that's how these guys, they're like that. It's staring them right in. You can put it right in front of their face, and they still cannot see it, or refuse to see it, you know. And that's just how it is. So I walked away. I said, you know what, I'm done. I was trying to share something nice here. I was happy that to find, some credible, information and share that. But now, now, Mister, I don't see Bigfoot getting a hand job from Wonder Woman had to blow it. Anyway. Mad Two Hat says, never wrestle with a pig because you both get dirty and the pig likes it. Yes, sir. Never get into a pissing contest in the wind is another way of saying that. Yeah. So, it's is it I do think that part of it's gatekeeping though. I do think that there's something a little bit far more sinister underneath, in some cases and on some forums that may have some people on those forums may have some agendas other than just stupidity and hard-headedness. It's it's harder to memorize and study and to really read some crack some books open, use that smartphone in order to try to make yourself smart and research something. It took me 10 minutes to look up Samek, the history of Samek, and read through a few paragraphs to find where it stated that Aria Pro was doing business back in the 70s with them. And yet, for some reason, for decades now, nobody else has taken the time to look that simple fact up to say that, hey, that story about them stop making the no longer producing them in Japan after 87 is not true because I read this from Samick themselves. The supposed, person, the party that these went to, that no, that's not how that went. You know, we've been doing business since the 70s and we got part of it still. We were the same amount we were doing, maybe a little bit more, but not all. You know, just blows my mind. It's deep, man. It's deep. Now, the pro audio forums are literally the worst. Yeah, I cruised through some of the pro audio forums, and yeah, that's even worse. I agree. Yeah, I'm sitting here bitching about the guitar forums, but yeah, the pro audio forums. Yeah, I don't even, I don't even try to participate. Don't let someone else's nostalgia or misinformation shape your choices. Do not let somebody else's nostalgia or misinformation shape your choices. Do your own digging, do your own homework, do your homework, do your homework. Um, Even check out what I say is true. You know, don't believe what Mike says. Go check it out for yourself. I'll point you in the direction of where to check it out. That's no problem. Make it a little easier, but check it out yourself too. Ask always the question, is there something else? You know. But at the end of the day, trust your ears and your hands, not what it says on the neck plate. It's a little bit of a variation from the trust your ears and your hands, don't care what it says on the headstock. It's the same thing. Great guitars don't need permission from the forums. They don't. And neither do you. You don't need the approval of the guys on the forums because there are a bunch of great guys on the forums, but unfortunately there are gatekeepers and dicks there too. and they spoil it for everybody. You know, it's like that old Osmond Brothers song, "One Bad Apple Spoils a Whole Bunch of Girls." Boy, you gotta be old to know that one. That is a '70s Osmond Brothers song. One bad apple can spoil a whole bunch of girls. It's the same thing with the gatekeepers and the misinformed on these forums. And, you know, it drove me away. I'm like, all right, guys, this is your sandbox. It's here now, documented. I won't delete it. And, you know, I left it off where you can't, you know, say that I don't know what I'm talking about. Rusty Dog says, Maddie the pig would smell better than you. Hey, Rusty, don't get into Maddie too much. That's coming, rich coming from Rusty Dog. Keep it nice, guys. Do you see this week's Fender is buying Reverb and opening a EVH division custom shop? Yeah, I saw that. Well, it's not really Fender. It's the financial, the gurus behind that bought them. They also bought a few other things, but they are an investment group and they also own Fender. So it's more accurate to say the investment group that owns Fender bought Reverb. Now, will there be a synergy between Reverb and Fender as a result? Of course. Again, the ice cream shop analogy, it only makes logical sense. You know, if it makes logical sense, that's probably what happened. But I guess you have to think logically in the first case in order to come to those. Anyway, I digress. Are you Dyson from Terminator 2? That's the second time I got that, Raj. I don't know if this is a bot saying that or if you're a real person, but I actually like that. I told my friend that the other day. Somebody said that, and they got a giggle out of it. They thought it was nice. Um, but there'll be things coming out of that. Again, when you have a BlackRock type situation, you know, controlling something like a reverb, then you can expect in the end it's not going to be good for the consumer. That channel gets narrower and narrower and narrower, like I said. And that's why I said these gatekeepers come in all shapes and sizes in this industry. Imagine how it is everywhere else. But if you have a little bit of knowledge and you are aware that there are some great guitars out there that you can get in Japan, won't cost you an arm and a leg, and will beat the pants off of anything that you can get today in terms of fit, finish, and quality, then that would certainly cause angst among certain people because they're gatekeepers and they don't want you knowing that. They want you spending your money on what I mean. Look at this week at Epiphone. Epiphone did their big push this week with their new models. Everybody and their mamas got a new Epiphone video. Oh, guys, look what Epiphone sent me. Oh, really? Really? Just sent it to you, huh? And, you know, again, I look at those Epiphones and I say to myself, geez, you know, okay, I would say that Tokai or Greco are just as good of and an older standing than Epiphone in terms of name quality. So why would I get $1,000 modern day Epiphone? Which, by the way, they finally switched back over to Rosewood, I noticed. I guess they heard that sly little complaint that most people were giving on that, and they, like, why are we spending 1,000 plus and we're getting Laurel? Well, they switched over to Rosewood. But everybody and their mom has one of those guitars out and they're pushing. It's a big push. You see that all the time. But again, if you got a little bit of knowledge, you'll look at that and say to yourself, why would I spend the money for that when I can get a Greco EG 600 or 700 for about $600 or $700 these days, you know, shipped in a case, and it's a way sweeter guitar in a lot of ways. especially when you get into the 700s and the 800s. I have a line on an SE 800, which is I've had 600, 500s, 600s. I had a 700. I haven't had an 800 before coming up here, possibly. But again, um, why would I get any Squire when I could get an SC 5 or 600 for about the same price shipped? And it is a far better guitar. And it's vintage too. It's got a little, cachet to it. Some of the new Epiphones retail price is uh, 3,499. Wow, Maddie, that's crazy in Australia. That's crazy, dude. Y'all thought I was bullshitting you when I talked about how long ago was that we were talking about the me and Three Court Dave. We're talking about the $2,000 Epiphone shit. Now they're $3,000. You know, that didn't take long. What's a dollarly do worth these days? Yeah, yeesh. Australia's doing rough. Yeah, about a tenth of what it was a few years back. Yeah, man. You inflate the money value away, and that's what happens. That's why in inflationary times, the prevailing wisdom is to put your cash into hard assets because as time goes on, weeks, months, even, depending upon the rate of inflation, that loss of value can be somehow stored or held in, tangible products. And so therefore, any, but it gets to a point where some of that value that you're putting into that tangible object just isn't there, and this is one of those cases. Gold, okay, that works because obviously that's going up. An Epiphone, no. Just like any car, when you drive off a lot, it's going to lose a certain percentage of its value anyway, 20% to be nice. So, anyway, I'm rambling. I'm tired. I'm tired. I just, I did just to wrap this up, guys. I'm sad that my shipment didn't come in today. I'm super bummed out about it. Actually, not super bummed out. Let me not say that. I'm not because that would be a falsehood. I'm disappointed, but I still am anticipating it. But you know, it's just funny to me that I do this for a living, and even to the point where I'm waiting for vintage guitars to come through, and I get called out for my expertise. It pisses me off a little bit. It's like when Michael Corleone was talking to Carlo Rizzi, and he says, "Don't tell me that you had nothing to do with Santino because it insults my intelligence and it makes me very angry. Don't tell me that I don't know about vintage Japanese guitars because it insults my intelligence and it makes me very angry." So tonight was really more of a rant, I guess. I don't think I portrayed myself as being, angry and rantish tonight. Frankly speaking, I'm running on fumes. So that's part of it. But just to wrap this up, guys, do your homework, please, for God's sake. If you take anything else away from this channel and what we're all about, do your homework, not just with gear, but with everything. If you're getting ready to buy a washing machine, I expect that you should know at least two alternatives to that one and what their prices are. You know, tires for your car. If you have children, I guess kids, school clothes, things like that. Just everything, because at the end of the day, you may be surprised what you can find, you know. So we'll apply that across the board. Do your homework. That's tonight's takeaway. Form is, somebody said, sum this up, sum this up real quick. Well, do your homework. That's the subject, the real title tonight. Form myths versus vintage reality / do your homework. Your house isn't worth more, your dollar is worth less. Yes, sir. That's right. Thanks, Mike. Great show. Hopefully, you can show the guitars when they do show up. Yes, sir, Scott. Thank you so much for moderating, you and Maddie. Always. I hope so. I will not. I'll tell you what I'll do. When it comes in, I will film an unboxing video of 3 of the 4 guitars. I'll do the Greco, the Fender Strat, and the Tokai. The Aria Pro 2 that's for myself, I won't show that in the unboxing video. I'll keep that separate. And on Sunday night, I'll show that for the first time so you guys can see it before anybody else. I'll put the unboxing video out then, probably, if all goes well, knock on wood, Saturday or Sunday afternoon. So you guys can look forward to that. Um, but CR7, how you doing? Welcome. Thanks, guys. I'm going to go to bed. Good night to you guys. I will see you on Sunday. Hopefully with that. Hopefully with. If I don't have it by Sunday, I don't know what to do. But hopefully with that, I'll show that off, and you guys can see that first. All right, guys. Oyasamina Sai, or good morning, or good afternoon, depending upon where you are in this world. Thank you so much for tuning in, watching. You guys have a good one. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.